Hello everyone, Jim here, welcome back to another video. In this video, I'm going to be talking about a new deck that I made recently, and although I've only played a few games with it, it's quickly becoming one of my favorites. And this deck's commanders, yes, commanders, there's two of them, are Ian Chesterton and the Third Doctor. Ian Chesterton is a 2/3 human scientist for 2 and a white, and he has each saga spell you cast has a replicate. Replicate cost is equal to its mana cost. So that means when you cast this saga, copy it for each time you pay its replicate cost. Copies of permanents enter the battlefield as tokens. And the Third Doctor is a 2/2 Time Lord Doctor for 2, a green and a blue. He has Trample. He gets +1/+1 for each non-creature token you control. And when he enters the battlefield, create your choice of a clue, food, or treasure token. Now, the thing about this deck is, even though we do have two commanders, all we really need is Ian. And the Third Doctor is more of a backup plan that we'll talk about later. But for now, let's just start talking about how this deck works. For this deck, we want to be making a lot of copies of sagas with Ian's replicate ability. And to do that, we're going to need a lot of mana. One of the best mana sources for this deck is Sanctum Weaver, which scales as we make more saga tokens. And there's also Jaheira, Friend of the Forest, who makes our saga copies tap for mana. Reducing the cost of enchantments also helps in this department, and we can use things like Starfield Mystic, Inquisitive Glimmer, Jukai Naturalist, and Sten Paranoid Partisan to do that. Then, once we get enough mana to start playing a bunch of sagas, we're going to want to refill our hand. And with things like Entity Tracker, Eidolon of Blossoms, and Chesterton Champion, it's just too easy. Since each saga token entering will trigger their constellation, or Eerie in the case of Entity Tracker. Alright, now that we've gotten that out of the way, we can talk about the real fun part of this deck, the sagas. Sagas in this deck can do all sorts of things. There are some that can ramp us even more, such as Azus Has Many Journeys, whose first chapter lets us play an additional land, or the Weatherseed Treaty, whose first chapter has us tutor for a basic input into play. There are also some that can act as removal, such as the Fall of Lord Konda, which can remove a large threat, and the Curse of Fenric, which can remove something from each player. And there are even some that can offer us protection, like Tamio Meets the Story Circle, whose first chapter can blank out a big attack, and The Girl in the Fireplace, which makes noble tokens that are great blockers. At this point, you can probably guess that the win con this deck is also sagas. Michiko's Reign of Truth, copied 4 or 5 times, can often win the game on its own. But there are also things like Triumph of Gerard, which can give massive buffs to a creature, or the Weatherseed Treaty right ahead to the third chapter, that can make a creature into a big threat out of nowhere. We also have some non-saga enchantments with All That Glitters and Strength of the Harvest, which can make our creatures deal big damage. This is also where the Third Doctor can swoop in to help us if need be. Remember, he gets +1/+1 for each non-creature token we control, which includes our saga copies. He also just has Trample, which often means he can get in for a good chunk of damage. This deck also packs a bit of a sneaky infinite combo, which I'll do my best to explain. For this combo, you'll need Ian on the battlefield, as well as Barbara Wright, who says sagas you control have read ahead. Then, you'll want to cast 3 Blind Mice, replicated at least once. The first 3 Blind Mice you can have enter on Chapter 1, making a mouse token, but the copy you will want to read ahead to Chapter 3, which says create a token that's a copy of target token you control. And with that ability, you will target the 3 Blind Mice token copy. You can probably see where this goes from here. The new token will then read ahead again to the third chapter, which will make another copy, which will then make another copy, and so on and so forth until you either have a billion 3 Blind Mice tokens or you've accidentally decked yourself with an Enchantress. Your opponents will then have one turn cycle to deal with you before your sagas tick up again, giving all your creatures +1,000/1,000, and Vigilance. Or maybe you just kill them all right then and there, because you had an Atropia the Twice Favorite on the battlefield, and all your creatures are now big flying threats. As I said at the beginning of this video, this deck has become one of my favorites, and I hope you enjoyed listening to me talk about it. The deck list will be linked down in the description if you want to check it out. Also down in the description will be a link to my Blue Sky, where you can watch me ramble about Magic some more, and my Ko-Fi, where you can support me if you want to. And, as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!